Hello, how are you doing? In what's become a lovely annual tradition, former President Barack Obama has posted a list of his favorite books that he's read in the past year, and he posts this without any commentary or summaries, so I thought I'd make a video looking at this group of books and giving brief descriptions of them if I have any thoughts or feelings about them. He selected 5 books of fiction and 5 books of nonfiction, and as you'd expect, a lot of these books are considering some of the biggest issues that we're facing in the world today by drawing upon a lot of different research and taking different creative approaches to discussing them. So if, like me, you are very concerned about what is happening in the world today and where we are going and how we got to this point, these books seem like a great place to begin to looking at all of these big issues, and a couple of these books are really great ones that I read this year, and one of them is amongst one of my favorites that I read last year. First is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, who's a social psychologist, and he considers how since the advent of the smartphone in 2010, this has led to a rewiring of the childhood experience. So children and teenagers who have been raised focusing so much of their time on these little devices and having much less face-to-face conversations and real-world experiences, that this leads to more feelings of isolation and mental health issues, and leaves this new generation much less prepared to become fully formed and self-governing adults. So I'm sure any parents today will be very aware of this issue. Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This novel considers a lot of contemporary issues, but from a very focused and personal point of view, as it portrays the voices of 2 Irish brothers who have recently lost their father, so they are grieving for him, and they are each struggling with romance and relationships, but also their familial relationship to each other. They're quite different ages from each other, so almost represent 2 generational points of view, but it considers issues to do with community and capitalism and love through many different discussions and arguments, so dramatizing all of these many different issues in a really meaningful way. Patriot by Alexei Navalny. This is a posthumously published memoir by the great and very brave Russian opposition leader who died earlier this year while being imprisoned by Russian authorities. He was very outspoken in his critiques of Putin and trying to hold him to account. So this follows his journey, describes his beliefs, and how he forms a sense of national identity separate from the one imprinted upon him by the current Russian regime. And if you don't get a chance to read this book, I'd really urge you, if you haven't done so already, to watch the extraordinary documentary Navalny, which won an Oscar last year. Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This is quite a short novel following 6 astronauts in a spacecraft that is circling around our globe and following their observations of it. So I'm sure many of us have this feeling that we wish we could just leave this planet, if only temporarily. And this novel fictionally provides you an opportunity for that, to observe our planet and the beauty and majesty of it, but also consider it from a very different point of view, how all of these national borders that we cling to and fight over, that they don't actually exist. They're just things, they're constructs of our society. And so to consider us as a human race outside of this context is such a valuable point of view, but also following the drama of the stories and these individuals who are all wrestling with their own issues that are happening in the present and that occurred in the past from this very special vantage point. It's such an inspiring and wondrous experience, and this novel is so poetically written. The Anthropologists by Aysegul Savas. This is a novel following a couple who move to a foreign city and they begin observing the customs and the community around them as if they were anthropologists and taking notes about their behavior and trying to figure out how to fit in this new place. So I think this is following kind of our own development as we grow, and I'm trying to figure out how we fit in the wider world, and questions whether there is a new way to live and a new way to form relationships and a community. Stolen Pride by Arlie Russell Hochschild. This is a non-fiction book considering the current political landscape, the rise of the far right, and rhetoric from this camp, which pushes forward the idea that lost pride is stolen pride and shame should be turned into blame. And this leads to a lot of antagonism and violence. And the author considers all of this through interviews that were conducted with a hard-hit community in Appalachia and considering their political beliefs and points of view. In Ascension by MacInnes, and I am thrilled to see Obama highlighting this book, which I found incredibly moving and profound as it follows the journey of a woman who's a scientist as she travels to the furthest depths of the ocean, but also into the furthest reaches of outer space, and how it traces her journey and development, her sense of individual wonder, and exploring the largest questions to do with life and its origins and how it should be lived. It is such a fantastic journey, which really made me appreciate the world around, the physical world around me in much more detail, and I think is an incredible story. And I was so privileged to speak to MacInnes about it last year, and I gave an interview with him here on my channel, so I'll post a link to a video to that if you haven't seen it before. Growth, A Reckoning by Daniel Susskind, who is an economics professor, and this is a non-fiction book considering the past, present, and future of economic growth and how that has been such a focus in politics for a long period of time now. And of course, this growth has led to a lot of great things, of a better standard of living and living for longer, but it's also led to a lot of economic inequality and environmental destruction and destabilizing technologies. So he explains how we need to change our ideas and values surrounding growth and capitalism to try to form a sustainable future. Someone Like Us by Dinaw Mengestu. This is a novel following a man who's an Ethiopian-American journalist who's been living abroad, but he returns to the US to visit his mentor who dies at the very beginning of the book. And this sets him off on a quest across America, investigating the mystery surrounding this death, but also larger questions about modern life that he's been grappling with. And part of the big intrigue of this novel is it asks us to question how much we can believe or rely upon this narrator. And finally, there is The Work of Art, How Something Comes from Nothing by Adam Moss, who is a former New York Magazine editor, and he brings together conversations with a whole range of artists and filmmakers and writers, from Stephen Sondheim to Tony Kushner, George Saunders, Louise Gluck, all of these really great creators to discuss the creative process and where art actually comes from in the mind and reproduces doodles that take place on napkins that are like the start of a much bigger process, and examining this creative process and how and why we make art. So those are Obama's top 10 books of 2024, and I would love to hear if you have read any of these books and what you think about them, or if you're interested in reading any of them now. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.